That's what I was saved by the bell.
Saved by the bell.
Morning.
Yeah,
We were just talking about that.
Okay, we're live, guys.
Okay.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Come to order, please. This is Washington Area Highway Transportation Committee. It is Monday, June 25th, 2018. Call to order. Gina. Sorry we weren't following you back there, Gina. You're probably waiting on everything.
Okay, Mark Wessels,
Here.
Ed Fisher,
Where's that?
Judy Wagner. Here. Ray Frankenberg,
Here.
Bob Ingeman,
Here.
Bill Stratman.
Here.
Mayor Lucy. Here. Joe Holtmar,
Here.
Janet Cassette, Elby Eckelkamp,
Here.
Bill Miller, Tim Brinker,
Here.
Steve Sullentrup,
Here.
John Nilges.
Here.
Okay, pledge allegiance, please. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chairman.
All right, let's get this show on the road. First item, always, approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. Any questions?
You have you have the last meeting and the meeting before that, because you didn't have quorum last time.
Yeah. We do have to approve both of them, don't we?
Motion to approve both.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented from both the previous meeting and the one before that. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carried. First item, Amtrak, Mark.
Yes, sir. I was one that caused that lack of quorum, so I missed the last meeting or two, and we had a MORPAC meeting back in March, I guess, April. And so anyway, some of the quick things on that, we are seeing some good train ridership here in Washington. We got a year summary, and that was up about 3 or 4% from the year before. So it's been on a gradual increase. We're approaching 16,000 a year on off here at our station. Also had a lot of other things that I'm hoping are now resolved. So I'm not even going to go into them. And I know our birthday guy John's going to explain going to explain more to you about the whistles. And I did want to mention, I mentioned to him I'll try to get together him. The next MORPAC meeting comes up in about 2 weeks. And we always have a UP and an Amtrak rep there, including some of their maintenance and work people. So I'll get together with John before that meeting and get his latest. He's been working real hard on this thing. And take it up there and see if we can add to it, although try not to interfere with the good work he's got started, though. So we'll collect that data next month and let you know.
Very good. Any comments, questions? John, you want to go into the whistles?
Yeah, I'll give you a heads up on it. So I guess it was probably 6 to 8 months ago, we received a couple Mayor Action Center reports, and I know the committee probably got some phone calls regarding the intermittent train whistling downtown. So we started looking into it. I know there was a variety of ideas of what it could be, specifically with the 47 Bridge. We thought that maybe there was construction work going on there, and that's why it was very intermittent. However, that was not the case. I was contacted by a gentleman named Howard Gillespie with Federal Rail. He is in charge, I think, of their safety coordination on the actual crossings themselves. And he was able to nail down exactly what the cause was. With the implementation of positive train control, which is a computerized, essentially, function within the locomotives that backs up the human component. So in 2000, and I'll go into this, in 2006, the city of Washington applied for a quiet zone from Lafayette to Kingsland Drive. So that's the crossings that we all know, everyone, has probably driven over across. Though part of that process was that when that quiet zone was established, that those were the only two crossings the city had left over. There was one over at the end of Tiemann Drive, which was essentially worked out with the railroad whenever the concrete plant moved to the east. So that one was essentially abandoned or given back essentially to Union Pacific. The passenger depot, though, for loading passengers onto cars was defined as a at-grade crossing. Now, when the process was going through in 2006, no one knew that. So when the signage went up went up on the actual train, the rail themselves up in, east and west of the depot. The engineers or the conductors, knew there was a quiet zone from Lafayette to Kingsland, so they never blew the whistle. It was just part of it. It just kind of got lumped in with it. So with the implementation of positive train control being a computerized function, the computer is essentially, or whatever's in that locomotive, is what's blowing the whistle. So then the question became is why is it intermittent? Well, there was, I guess, a grace period for some Union Pacific trains to get the system into their locomotives. Some of the trains have them, some of them do not. So this problem will get worse and worse because Union Pacific is gradually putting new, upgrading their systems. And the conductors don't really know this, so they don't blow the whistles. If the computer's not there to back them up, you don't get a whistle blown. And sometimes you do. So working with Federal Rail, Amtrak, Union Pacific, we have now kind of a flow chart of what to be, what needs to be done. Hopefully, the only thing that Union Pacific and Amtrak will require is some additional signage at the depot. It is totally enclosed. There is a gated, a gate with or a fence with a gate. So we're hoping that all we got to do is put some signs on that gate. But there is a 60-day comment period with their organization that'll recommend different infrastructure. I'm confident that it won't be anything else than signage, but I cannot guarantee that right now. It's up to Amtrak and really Union Pacific. I'm working on getting a meeting scheduled with them. I hope to have that in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And we all just essentially go down there and look to see what needs to be done. But once that's done, we'll file what's called a notice of intent to extend the quiet zone or amend it. Once that comment period's over, then there's a notice of establishment, and Union Pacific can go into their system then and remove that at-grade crossing from the PTC programming. So it's kind of a bureaucratic process. It's going to take some time, but I've been meeting with property owners down there pretty much weekly, and I think everybody understands. Well, they don't necessarily understand the process, but they know what we have to go through to get this done. So hopefully it'll be resolved late summer, early fall.
And you're the first one to take it and get it done and figure it out.
What's that?
Washington is the first
Yeah,
community.
I mean, I've not contacted anyone else that they're having this problem, but it's unique because our depot is unique with having a piece of concrete essentially in between the two tracks.
On the
That is
north
a very
track.
unique thing.
The train comes in on the north track.
There you go.
We have that concrete so a passenger can go straight across without going up and over tracks and down. So there's a concrete pad that goes over to the north track.
And it makes sense because you're crossing at
You're
grade.
crossing a
Yeah,
track.
it makes
It's that
sense.
grade. It's that grade.
But in
Wheelchairs,
2000
everything.
Yeah.
In 2006, when the city and the consultant, everybody was going through it, nobody really thought that that's what it was defined as. And like I said, it functioned as a quiet zone because there's signage up the tracks that say quiet zone ahead, and the engineers never blew it
did it,
because it was
yeah.
that's a human component. So now that we have this electronic backup, essentially, that's what's causing the situation. So
And I think John's right, it will increase because while we got an extension on the PTC, UP is very pleased that they think they're going to get them all in this year. So we may see it increase before it gets corrected.
Very good.
I think they all leave though for a while because like yesterday or Saturday, there was hardly any sound. and
it's
then-
pretty interesting when we're going through this because, like I said, the individuals, Federal Rail, they have access to quite some interesting maps and things, and you can actually see the locomotives, kind of where they move throughout the country. It's kind of neat. So they're going and leaving and coming from all over. So it's just we get intermittent whistling because some have them, some of them don't. And they said a lot of the trains in the Midwest, they worked on the coast more. So East and West Coast has PTC implemented on most of the locomotives. The Midwest is kind of lagging behind, and that's why we don't have them every single day blowing. But I've been getting reports at 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, it's just random. It'll go days without anything, and then at 3 in the morning, you'll get whistling. Nobody knows. So that's the reason why, though.
I think it is important both to have the positive train control and to have John working to get this worked out for us because our front street's growing. It's awesome what's happening down there, and we want more people to live there and enjoy living there. So I appreciate you working through it, and I'm sure we all appreciate it. And thanks to those of you who get calls at 2 in the morning about it as well.
I would just ask everybody to stay patient while we work through this because this is Union Pacific Railroad, Federal Rail Administration, MoDOT, there's a lot of organizations. that have
At least
to
now
go.
we have an explanation to give. If you don't remember it at 2 in the morning, you can call them the next day and
Well,
say,
John,
Yeah.
I have numbers for everybody if anybody needs them.
John, what is our number of trains per day, per 24-hour period?
Is that what the number, 64?
Something like that.
Something.
It-
There we
it
go,
varies.
64, that's-
You used to hear between 55 and 65 somewhere, you know.
Yeah, I-
4 passenger and the rest are all freight.
Never been asked, so,
Now you
now I know.
And we're not hearing it 64 times, so.
Probably hearing it maybe three or four,
Yeah,
maybe.
that's really it.
Not yet.
Not yet.
And it's not so bad because it's a short,
What- Yeah.
It's very brief. Back in
It's
the old
just at
days,
the
it was
actual
so
depot
long.
itself.
But for those of us that live along the rail, I can tell you it is nice to have the quiet zone. It
Oh,
made
it
a difference
is.
back in 2006 when we got that, so it is nice.
good job, John. Any other comments, questions regarding Amtrak and/or the train whistles? Hearing none, move forward. Highway 47, Missouri River Bridge. Robert, anything?
Yep.
Bridge is looking
We've
good.
reached a good milestone. We've got all the girders in place. So as you saw in the paper, the ironworkers put the evergreen tree up there to signify the completion of the superstructure steel with no lost lives or anything. So great. And we had our safety meeting celebration kind of after that. And kudos to everybody that worked on that. So that's finished. Kind of takes a lot of the uncertainty out of the river elevation now. So basically everything's going to be coming in by truck. So now it's just the stuff that falls from the sky on the site that has a potential of delaying our opening. So right now we're still on schedule for a early December opening of the bridge. And we're going to talk about the ceremony, probably going to be having that on the Saturday, December 1st. Again, weather pending, but our tentative date is December 1st. It's a Saturday afternoon, probably going to be a little chilly. But we will start the planning of that after this meeting, actually. We're meeting to start getting those committees together for the event of the ribbon cutting. So exciting times. Contractor will be out tying deck steel, getting the forms in place. The contractor did switch to a 6 to 2:30 workday now because of the heat temperatures
Oh,
and
okay.
so forth. So you might start seeing them out there earlier. Some of the crews may be working longer shifts as well to keep on schedule, so, but moving along very well,
Which end will they start from for the decking?
both.
Both ends?
Those were great pictures, Judy.
Did you see the aerial
That
pictures?
was great.
Yeah, really.
Good.
You know, when you're going north, the bridge looks like it's got a tremendous
Arch.
arch in it. I mean, is that,
Yes, it does. However, it's got a lot of deflection, and I know Kevin's here.
Yeah.
What is our deflection gonna be? You can lose a foot or so. I was gonna say 12 inches. It goes down about a foot when you get the deck on it.
Yeah.
So right now, it's pretty cambered upward, but once you put the weight of the deck on it, it'll start to lower down a little bit
I
over
mean,
those
the
things.
pictures and everything, of the illustrations of the picture, it looks straight. But it's really not going to be straight. It's going to have a pretty
It's
good.
gonna have an arch, definitely.
Judy, I was down there earlier, and I saw, are they starting to take out the temporary pilings?
Yes, they are taken out at Bin 6 right now, at Pier 6.
Mm-hmm.
They started taking those out, so no need to have them in place anymore.
Right.
Yep.
Judy, those girders, on all your new bridges, MoDOT's new bridges, they're not painting any of those?
No. We have found that that type of steel is a long-term maintenance. Actually, it lasts a lot longer than our paint does. It's made to rust and protect the actual steel and the structure. So it's definitely an economic benefit for us, along with, trying just to not have our folks out there exposed to those kind of elements to maintain that paint.
Any complaints about the ugliness of it?
Yes, we get a few of those. And then if you got areas underneath where that water drips, it kind of turns the pavement or sidewalk a certain color, but
Pollutes the water, huh?
it dilutes the water, yeah.
Well, you won't have that unsightliness when the existing bridge is torn down. You won't see the sides of that.
Yeah, and I think if you're right, because if you look at the paint peeling, to me, that's awful looking.
Yeah. People see that.
And you could you really see it really quick. As soon as it starts chipping, you really notice it, and it ages the structure, where this will always stay nice and brown. So it really won't.
That's how we
It'll
need to
be
describe it.
under
That
the-
nice brown color is what you don't like?
It's a eco-friendly.
Eco-friendly, thank you. So,
Prairie.
but yeah, I guess, I mean, you will get used to it, and it does really, the longer the bridge sits there, the more equal the color gets.
You don't see it.
Because we did a bridge back in 1998 up in South County. I was the inspector, so that's a long time ago. But, and you know, when I first went up, there was this blotchy looking where it kind of had rusted more than others. But now I drive it, and the color is very consistent. It just looks like a brown bridge. But on your bridge, we're going to focus on those beautiful piers and the arched girders and all the other good features, not necessarily the color of the steel, right?
Maple piers.
The maple piers, the Gothic piers.
Gothic.
And I believe you did use the word pollution, not dilution, and it's not really a
Dilution.
pollution issue for the river.
Right.
The lead-based paint was much worse than that.
A little rusty water.
Is all utility,
Iron for the fish right now.
Judy, is all utilities on board to getting there?
We are working, right now, that's probably one of our biggest challenges right now is, Gertrude Electric and our, subcontractors trying to coordinate all the conduit being put in and transferring all of that onto the new structure and getting it where it's supposed to be within the new structure itself. So, yes, they are all on board, they're working with us. But again, the lighting is probably our biggest challenge right now. And I know John's, you know, he's been helping us a lot with what the city is wanting and how to control the signal, how to control the lighting. So yeah, that's probably our biggest challenge right now, but it's nothing that I can't see us working out, so.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, very good. Anything else on the bridge? Hearing none. ADA transition. John, anything?
The plan was approved by council last month. We did meet our deadline essentially for the 2018 STP grant application. Just a brief, I'm thinking the numbers off the top of my head, but I think essentially in the 90% of the sidewalks are not currently ADA compliant. That is not a surprising number. I don't want anyone to take away from that that's an issue. Most of the facilities were built 50s and 60s. They're fairly old. And there were no standards back then. So the plan will assist us in going for grant funding for future projects, and we will work very hard to ensure that all new sidewalks put in are ADA compliant to the best of our abilities. Now, there are many things that go into that: utility pole placement, fire hydrants, things that, barriers essentially that we'll have to identify as we go. But I think the plan went very well. We are the second city in Franklin County to have a plan in place. And I actually have spoken with some of Judy's colleagues within MoDOT, Southwest District, and a few people that were calling and just asking how the process went with us, and they were very impressed that we got this taken care of and done. I would say that we're probably ahead of the game even in St. Louis County. So it was something that is very necessary for us to get funding for future projects. So I thank Kevin and his crew at HDR to getting that taken care of and working with our staff. So I would ask that this agenda item be removed. I don't think there's a need for it anymore.
Very good.
What was your overall completion date of trying to get it complete?
That was the hardest thing because funding is obviously the biggest issue. It's hard for me to project that out. And as stated to council, it's interesting because there's really two components. You got ADA compliance and you have a hazardous sidewalk component. So just because you're not ADA compliant doesn't mean that the sidewalks are considered hazardous. And I know that compliance is the biggest thing here, but we have to also have this hazardous in our evaluation. So we had, I think there were three different phase one or priority 2, priority 3, essentially is how it was broken out. And we threw numbers like 2040, I think 2045 maybe being a completion date. But that was based upon getting STP funding, to do some of this work, and it was a continuation of our transportation sales tax, which is, I think up in 2030, so having that extended. So it's a very fluid document and fluid schedule, and that's how we're going to approach it. If we need to make amendments, maybe look at this thing every 3 to 5 years and make an amendment. So we have a lot of facilities in town and a lot of old buildings, and it makes things very challenging.
Any other comments, questions regarding ADA? Hearing none. Highway 47 Corridor Committee? Have you met?
I have nothing. I don't know if,
Right, the Log
Mr.
Miller
Brinker does.
study is in, obviously, you've probably read in the newspaper, the article regarding Union's interest in the straightening potentially of the interchange between 50 and 47 there, which is obviously the biggest cog in the entire wheel in terms of expense, and the estimate that MoDOT put out in terms of what is 16 or 18 million total.
The tentative estimate was
Understood,
16,
Right.
and now it's a little less than that.
No, I think we will see, is what I'll say to that.
Right, there you go.
But, and that's great that we have some numbers to apply to that aspect of it, that portion of it. What we will do as the corridor committee is still encompass that whole plan, obviously. And just, it's great that the additional exposure is there. Transportation funding is going to be the key. So we need to urge any and all, be it state, federal, and local legislators to make sure we push for our transportation dollars here to improve the safety and transportation we have.
Tim, we both sit on this Freightways
Yes, sir.
committee. And one of the items that was on that original list of potential funding, places to fund, was the Highway 47 bridge originally. We had already had it funded before the Freightways thing got going. So that basically, but that was designated as a major obstacle when it was not there, new bridge, to the freight coming from Highway 70 going down to 44 as a freight, literally a freight corridor. And so we have to continue to push for that intersection. That would be the only intersection then that could be a key problem tie-up, is that one at Union.
That's very true.
It
Right.
probably would be the biggest.
Well, I think the whole corridor is looked at as potentially the congestion is causing safety issues, which is a delay in freight movement. So now that the weight restriction will be removed from this bridge, now it will become a congestion issue. Just like 270 North is listed in the freight plan as a congestion issue. So now that's going to take over from the bridge. Now, whether this congestion cause a delay in freight movement as, say, 270 North or, 44 downtown or wherever the other issues are, that's what you're going to start competing against now, as far as the freight money.
Right, but anytime, and we all know, and especially from the study, the traffic volumes at that particular point in 47 are the largest, the greatest along the corridor. Which obviously in turn results in safety issues and accident compounding, if you will. So that's what's really going to happen and take place. Yeah, we've got this great opportunity here, and we need to keep pushing forward, and we are going to keep pushing forward. Believe you me. So.
And again, once the bridge is opened up to freight traffic again, and what are the restrictions on the bridge, if any, that you know of right now?
A weight limit of 40 tons. I think we raised it back up to 40.
Well, there'll be no limit then.
But there's also a height limit right now too, and a width limit.
Right.
So,
anything.
Yeah,
that's
when we
opened
build
up-
a new bridge, there will be no
limits.
so I guess the question for the community is, are we ready for this? Are we ready for a freight corridor?
Song in there. Y'all ready?
I don't think you're going to have a choice at this point.
No, I'm just asking.
But what do we need to do to make it more, so we have like 6 months right now, if we need to do something to our transportation system on one side or the other before it opens, what do we need to be thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, some of the things that I think of is they're going to get into this community as maybe spend the night, park their loads on the side of the road before they start going into the metropolitan areas, because as we know, Warren County is not in the urban central. So once you get into Franklin County, then you have different restrictions on those permits and those loads. So, if you look at the outskirts of what I see happening, like at M and 55, they're constantly parking the loads on the side of the highway, picking up the driver and going to spend the night until they can enter into the metropolitan area. So I kind of see that as one thing that you may start seeing.
So do we need a place for all that to park?
No, that's our motor carrier services, a lot of times will tell them where they have to park and leave. Kind of like what we just did with the girders. We parked them along 47, where we have all those extra width and shoulders and stuff like that. So, no, they will find the places where they'll park. You'll just start noticing where they find.
But are there any restrictions to that, or do we need to provide something? I mean, how big could that be? I
Oh
want
my.
all everything.
Normally, it's overweight, oversize permits that will, and I don't know if that's going to be an issue. I don't know if this is one of those type of corridors, depending on what they're hauling. Right now, we see a lot of the windmills, those long.
Turbine blades.
I can't remember, well, even the towers, they're shipping now is what we see, 3 to 4 a day going down 30. And I mean, I think they're 107 feet long or something. I mean, they're really long, and that's just the tower piece. And then they're also like 14-foot diameter. So I don't, I mean, this is the way they're going to the field from where they're being fabricated. So just like you have Genpack over here making the generators, where are they going? It's going to vary on the clientele.
And I know, yeah, and Mayor, I think you're asking just physically in the field, where would that be located at, correct?
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
your
I would
question?
hate this to be such a big deal that we have trucks everywhere.
Well, I think.
I mean, I want them to come
Might look
through,
like truck stuff.
but I don't,
It's-
Trucks.
I don't want them to come through, but I'd like them to.
I wouldn't anticipate, I mean, I wouldn't think that there would be an influx where you would notice it every day. I mean, it's pretty intermittent. But we also, I mean, just some areas I could think of already. I mean, there's the, I mean, if you really want, Studerman and 47, that striped out area right there. I mean,
That's where they were
on the going southbound, it's all striped right there. I mean, that's a prime spot. I don't want to speak for MoDOT, but
No,
that's a good
that's
location.
where we park the girders, right
Yeah,
there.
there we go. So I mean, there's areas in town, or just outside that you wouldn't even really notice them. So I don't think we would need to add facilities for that at this time.
I wouldn't at this time until you start
Yeah.
seeing that it's an issue. And it may be that if it becomes an issue, that you have to pass some no parking ordinances first before you provide places for them to park.
Yeah, I mean, we would want to be welcoming to this traffic. I mean, obviously, we would want this to come
But you
through,
don't
and
want
we'd
them
like them
going on
to
the
stop,
city streets
but,
and tearing them up.
but
so
yeah,
You
so.
want to park
we-
them on the state
I mean,
area.
We
welcome
have an
that.
ordinance in place, I mean, we have an ordinance in place as far as truck routes. It's not necessarily defined as a truck route. It's essentially that if you are allowed to use city streets to get to your destination. So it's very loose. But if you're not putting up a windmill down on,
Right.
3rd Street, you actually can't use 3rd Street to traverse through town. So I don't think it's an issue.
It could go either direction, though, if you think about it. It could come from 44 north, too.
Go either
So you
way.
get 5 months
I
to
would
do
think
something.
Warrenton would be.
Well, and I'm exactly.
If they make it through there.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with Warrenton, is there, Commissioner? Police
no.
there?
Comment on that. There is a spot on 47 in Quarry Road that is designed for large trucks to park overnight.
That's right,
We
yeah.
had about 6 months ago, so there is an ability for them to lay down for a little while. and come in.
Okay, I just curious.
So we have North Pole
And Ron Williams assured me that the study is in its final stages, okay? When we get this thing done, we're gonna have a meeting either at the end of this month or the early next month regarding the 47 corridor to update you on that.
That study's taken a long time.
Well, it takes a long time to do what they have to do, though. I mean, it's
And we allowed them the extra time, too, because of the improvements and the funding and stuff that was going on to collect some of the data.
right.
At the beginning.
Along that lines, Judy has, I don't know how much information or feedback you've gotten on 47 between here and St. Clair on the resurfacing, but I've gotten a lot, and it has been real positive.
Yes.
Anything you want to just brief us on in terms of how that's going?
We have had some locations where we've had the contractor mill up what they laid because of not achieving the spec in density. So you will see a lot of areas that they've had to remove and replace overnight. But again, the design build is coming in and going to put a high surface friction treatment over the top of what's out there for the majority of the route.
So
All
the
the way
majority
from
of it's going to be covered once again.
Again,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
So you will see about 80% of it covered. It's, instead of, as you remember, it was supposed to be a double microsurfacing, kind of like a
Right.
chip seal product that was going on just to seal the pavement. And our contractor proposed putting an inch overlay on it with a very fine mix. And so that was kind of the concern that we had. And so it did not meet all the spec. but again, we're requiring them to remove it and replace it.
Yeah, the feedback up until now has been, I'll check into it and don't
Okay,
know yet,
perfect.
so
Then
I
you
wanna
can
get-
check into it. Everything that will be down will meet our specifications. But then again, the aesthetic look of it will be covered up with that high friction treatment, which has that greenish tint. But it'll give it a higher friction.
Super, thank you very much, yeah.
All the guardrail is going in right now as well on part of the resurfacing project. So you'll start to see all the new guardrail going in, which I've seen a large percentage.
Right. yeah.
And then the design build contract will take over that route.
No political signs in the right of way anywhere?
Yes, I noticed that on the way up this morning, and I already made that call, so.
Curious.
Yeah, there's several political signs in the right of way.
Send the trucks out.
Send the trucks out. They'll be located at the Gray Summit building.
Yes.
Judy, going back to 5047 intersection, on that estimated 16 million or so, would that include a new bridge, or is a new bridge also projected for that?
Yeah, the one alternative, I mean, and we did not do any kind of environmental assessment or anything on this alternative. Basically, we just said, you know what, it makes common sense to kind of realign 47 north as you're going southbound, to go straight across Burbis River, behind Dickey Bubs, and then tie back into 47 south. So it's just one alternative that we wanted to look at just to get a rough estimate. Yes, there is a new bridge over the Burbis on a skew, just south of Route 50. Lockmuller is looking at some other alternatives too. They think it's better to go on the north side of 50 and bring 47 south and up around the railroad tracks. So this is kind of just providing general options out there for anybody to discuss, look at, and that's really where we're at right now, because that's the whole purpose of the study. And is that the most, like we all are assuming, that's the most critical point on 47, which based on using it, we assume that. But again, this study may show something different, so that's why we wanted to. And given that the cost share program is back open by our commission, I wanted to give the City of Union some alternatives there to fix that problem. If they want to come forward with their funds, this is something that would be eligible for cost sharing.
Okay, Franklin County Transportation Committee? Anything?
Yes, the transportation grants are due Friday. We have submitted an application for $50,000 to offset some of the costs for our West Main sidewalk project, which will extend sidewalk to the Catawba Place subdivision and then, further into our park system moving west. It's a 5-foot sidewalk. There is a pavement restoration due to a water main break we had approximately about a year ago, 12 months ago. And it will just rehab the entire section of pavement over an area that's 80 yards wide, essentially, or 80 yards long. So $50,000 offset some of those costs, and that is an 80-20 project, so this will offset our 20%. So it actually reduces the amount of dollars coming from the city to pay for that project.
Very good. You guys ready from Warren County? Make a presentation, Hubie, Chad, Hubie Kleesner, and Chad Egan. Come on, guys. Eric, get them all three up here.
Good morning, Chad Egan, Executive Director, Boonslick Regional Planning Commission. Hubie Kleesner, Warren County Commissioner. We wanted to just update you. You've been talking about the Highway 47 corridor and the safety issues that are there and the congestion. Well, with the flooding on the north side, after the bridge is completed, then there's no connectivity anymore. So we wanted to let you know that we will be submitting a build application for a connector, Highway 47 connector, from somewhere after the bridge to the Route 94 area. We've been looking through the application, specific details. I've been working with the design and the possible locations for that route with Ray and the other people that have done that in the past. You want to add anything else?
Well, there's a lot of components involved here. Number one, if you dump the traffic on 94, you got to get it back to Dutzel to T. These are just thoughts. Would we be better off to send it a little further to the east into St. Charles County, possibly get some funding through East Gateway, and maybe discourage people from using the connector to get to T when it's not flooded. Those are just thought processes. Because there is a tremendous amount of traffic on T now. You send that on 94 and try to get them to T. You know, I mull this over in my mind. If you raise 47 from the bridge to Dutzel, you're going to put the riverfront underwater much deeper because the water's got to go somewhere. So that maybe is not even a, you know, we're talking about using a causeway. I know that if you're going to go across the bottom, you're going to condemn all that land. You're not going to get cooperation there at all. I'll guarantee you. So those are just thought processes, and I don't know if we've got a snowball chance in hell, you might say, but at least we've got the ball rolling. We'll get on the radar. It's on the TAC list now. I think, and Judy, join in anytime because Eric won't.
Thanks, you. What does that say about me? No.
I'm just saying, when we do this, we have to consider everything involved and what is the best route to do it. I mean, the easiest thought process is just to jump from the bridge to the bluff, but that might not always be the best. I don't know. I mean, like I said, when I think about raising 47, I just know that you're going to drown everybody out from the bridge up.
Well, I don't think it'll be allowed, because you're going to get a rise if you do just that. The Corps is probably going to require whatever we do as a no rise, which means you cannot raise the backwater more than the 12 inches.
I agree with you there.
So I think it's either going to be an elevated causeway on bridges, or you're going to have to open up a lot more under, which then you're going to increase the size of those tributaries under 47, causing
Well, you know, you could.
issues too.
If you design it wrong, you've got a bridge that might not have any water running underneath. You might go over the bluff. I mean, so there's a lot going into it. Like I said, I appreciated Bill for giving the call, giving us the heads up on what we could do. And all we can do is try.
So are you applying for the build grant, which is similar to the Tiger?
Yes.
But are you doing it for the environmental work or for environmental design and construction, or what's the application?
All of the above.
All of the above, okay. And on your TAC committee, since Eric's not asking or giving, but on your TAC, on your RPC, your regional planning, is that in the illustrative category, or how do you guys rank your priorities and your needs for the area?
We come with needs, and MoDOT works with the design teams to come up with solutions. So right now, it is a need for us that's ranked as a Warren County.
It's a high priority.
It's a high priority.
High priority, okay.
I mean, you know, the mayor spoke.
That's impressive.
About trying to go from 70 to 44, and we've got a problem over the river. We've got a problem to get to the river, so we just have to keep charging that, that's all.
Yeah, there's some real opportunities here. We this new build grant, which replaces the Tiger grants, in my reading of it, identifies Washington's as being a prime candidate for this type of loan. Not necessarily Washington, but in your case, Boonslick Regional. You're a smaller entity in a smaller community with the population. You know, there's limitations on the amount that you can even ask for, but there are paragraphs in that law that indicates they could pay as much as they chose to pay, not necessarily the 80 or 20 or 20%, whatever it is, match. It indicates that if the need is there, they could actually pay the whole thing, is the way I read it. I think Chad and Hubie have jumped on this and taken it. Great ideas, and Ray and his firm, knowing the bottoms, knowing the information about how the waters flow and whatever, and the ideas regarding the river bottom itself. Joe Bernacci actually was a guy who, he's a good friend of mine, and Joe and I were just talking about it one day, and I said, Joe, you know, one of the things we got to really start considering is a causeway. I think the causeway is important because the new bridge is going to be done here in 5 months, and if March we have a flood, that bridge is going to be sitting there high and dry. So we can say, well, we'll wait till it happens, or we can try to become proactive. And this new build grant has a short fuse on it. applications have to be in by July 31, which is of this year. So how many people are going to have the access to smaller communities to make an actual grant proposal to send in? It is a shot in the dark, but I think in the case of what you guys are doing, it's going to put an asterisk by it, or it's going to show that we're serious about this. This is something that has to be looked at. It's a serious problem. We've just spent $63 million of the public's money, and now we need help to get it out of the river, out of the floodplain. I think it's a great story to tell. We could have a combination of 3 counties involved, Warren, St. Charles, and Franklin, to get involved in this with the bridge. You got a bikeway involved, so you got the green people. No, seriously. I mean, you got everything going in our favor. You got economic development that's happening in Warren County and how that's growing. Great census numbers. Where do they work? Do they all work a lot of them come on this side of the river.
Well, we've got people that go from Washington to Bowling Green.
Yep.
You betcha.
Wentz-
So, 47 is going to become an even more important artery. The freightway idea, they're asking for money as a high priority is to improve Highway 70 to Warrenton. Now, so that's in their plan, the freightways plan. So they're bringing it to that point. Why? Because of I'm not sure why, other than the fact that they look at 47 as being a north-south corridor. So I think on 47 on the south of the bridge, we've got things going. I think Judy's got things going. We're trying to we've got the study, ongoing. But we need the emphasis from you guys, Boonslick Regional, out of East-West Gateway for the north side. And I'm delighted that you guys are taking it and running with it. So we're going to help you every way we can to put some emphasis on this. So,
what do you guys think about trying to get East-West Gateway involved? That's a good idea.
I think you should get them involved, because in the Tiger Grant, as Chet, I'm not sure if you were at the RPC when I did the Tiger Grant for the bridge, we had Warren County resolution in there. I had Boone Slick, East-West Gateway. And now with this corridor being in the freightway, you need to get Mary Lamy on board as well as part of your application sponsor. But yeah, I would definitely get East-West Gateway on board.
Did you say July 1st or 31st?
31st, I think.
Good. Yeah, that'll be easy.
If there's anything you need from us.
I was going to just say.
Yeah, if there's anything you need.
Letters of support, Chad? Yes, we will. You probably want to go ahead and make a motion for that today.
Yes.
Because your next meeting will be a little too late.
I'll make that motion.
Have a second. Have a motion and a second to support the efforts of Warren County to do something to get
To apply for the build grant.
apply for the grant.
And what may be better in the application than just this is good for the green people, I would propose it to multimodal. I mean, we have everything here that we've spent a lot of money on. Right now, we have the river bottom, we have the Missouri River accesses are here, we have the railroad, we have the new $64 million spent on this corridor that is essentially standing vacant if we don't accommodate all the others. So it brings all that multimodal together, and it's an ongoing of the past spending of the public's dollars somehow.
You bet.
We actually got a letter of support as well from DNR
Okay,
for the Katy Trail connections.
okay.
So I have a motion on the floor for support. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We're going to support you wherever we can. So
Do you want a letter from the transportation group, obviously, and then do you
Probably
want
from
one
the
from the city of Washington as well?
We need one from the council.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then we'll
Yes.
do
I
one
agree.
from the
I
council
agree.
as well, so that'd be 2 of them.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And if you guys could maybe even include St. Charles County if you chose to, if you wanted to get a letter of support. And
Joe Brazel.
Joe Brazel, yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Great. See where it goes.
Thank you all very
See where
much.
it goes. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
good luck.
Airport.
Okay, the last board meeting was on May 8th. The next one will be in July 10th. Right now, we have 18 hangars on the waiting list, and all the hangars are currently full. Public presentations are available for anybody that wants me to come out and talk to them about the airport, explain what we do out there, and discuss traffic. There has been discussions about contact to the Katy Trail, which we are working with as much as anybody needs. I mean, as far as the airport board goes, we've said that we don't see an issue with that. And as long as the city's okay, we don't see an issue with it being on the city's property around the airport either.
Where is that committee, Mayor?
I think he's sitting here.
Okay, you are the committee. Okay, I was curious where that
Right
was.
there.
You haven't recruited anyone yet, Kevin?
Is it established at the city?
Well, we haven't really established it as a committee.
Okay.
No, I mean, we haven't. We've mostly been talking about it.
Okay.
We've been mostly-
The ramp, yeah.
As long as some meetings, so then everybody's in favor, so now it's just kind of a matter of.
So do you want people, if they call me and ask me about the connection, just to forward it to you?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. I
Do
mean,
we
are you
need an
looking for
official committee?
local support or help, or what's the direction?
Should we have an official committee? I mean, I
That's how you
kind of
get
was
action,
thinking
I
that
think, but that's my
came
opinion.
out of here, but do we need one?
I think it's going to take an effort in itself to get a connection from a separated connection from the Katy Trail to the Bridge Trail. Because, I mean, MoDOT is only going to fund the shoulder paving, and that's what we did. We met our commitments. But if you want a detached trail, an alternate trail off of state right-of-way, I think it's something that stands for its own
Okay.
committee, so that you can get the biking advocates in there, and they hold a lot of clout. Just my opinion only. Not that you need another committee, Mayor, but I think that does stand as a whole effort by itself as to what the best alternatives are.
And I would think that without it, it's not going to go anywhere. I keep it on my report because it's not anywhere else.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would drop it off of this report because I don't think it's an airport thing by any means. I do think that with the connection now across the bridge for trail and with tourism and the quality of life of living in Washington being improved by all that, I think it merits a committee. And I think if Kevin's willing to take it on, it's going to take someone with his knowledge of transportation and the right words to say at the right time to get the connection.
And to apply for the TAP grants. I mean, if there's other eligible funds to build this thing, that committee needs to work on that.
And we got a little time too. I mean, the new bridge is going to open up the traffic this year. The trail's not going to be done until the old bridge is tore out and gone next year. So we got a year time frame here to try, if you want to try and tag the two together, which is probably still even a bit of a rush, but.
Well, but I'm not saying necessarily build the trail, but I mean, you know how it takes years
Oh,
of
yes.
planning.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's what I was thinking. If the committee starts now, you may not construct it till 20 or 21,
Correct.
but it's going to be
Okay.
ready in 19. By July of 19, you're going to have people crossing the trail. On
And
the
but
bridge.
utilizing the airport property gets you down from about a 3-mile ride along 47 down to a 1-mile ride along 47, then about another mile up Waco Road, which is a county road and airport property, which the city's going to own or the county's going to own over 50% of that distance already. So you're talking about a 0.9 miles where you'll need new right-of-way. There's 2 parcels out there along 47 that you'll probably have to get right-of-way from to make an offset trail from 47 work.
I got a question. Is the Katy Trail, I mean, as far as Transportation Alternative Program, you said TAP, and that's what TAP stands for. Is it considered a transportation network, or is it a recreational defined? I mean, I know it functions as
As
transportation.
a recreational
Yeah,
facility.
Yeah, or is it a transport, is it
My
defined?
point
as-
is you're going to still connect it to a city of Dutzow and our city of,
Now, would MoDOT, I mean, there's a goal there of MoDOT too, to get people off of state right-of-way
Right.
for safety. Is there any dollars available that there would be a cost share on that?
that's
or is
what
it
the
just?
committee would have to determine.
But you're not aware of things, okay.
We just had
The
a
ones that
discussion.
we've approved have been through the TAP program, so.
Okay.
And you're in a different, you're in an RPC over there versus over here, we all compete through East-West
West
Gateway.
Gateway.
Over there, you also have the Missouri MoDOT TAP program that they apply for as well. So they're set up differently. And that's what I was getting at is you're in a whole
That's a
different
3-4 year process.
competitive, you've got maybe a couple more alternatives over there. And Eric, I guess your pedestrian way in Troy, you funded through the MoDOT TAP, right?
Yeah. And
So see, we
Walker
don't
right
get
now
that.
is looking at a possible cost share for a sidewalk on 47 Normally in our northeast district, the last go around, we had $850,000 and we had 17 counties, so, application for a couple $100,000, somewhere in that neighborhood.
That's right. And I think, Sal, is that how our Bush Creek Greenway was funded, was TAP?
Yeah.
So, right.
So it's just a little different how you
It's,
apply.
right, exactly. That's my point, was that TAP is truly transportation alternative. It is not recreational, it is not greenway, it is not those type of dollars. It's to connect people with a different, a different transportation method than vehicular. So, but MoDOT would support that, obviously. And I guess with that being in Warren, we'd have to look into that too, with that being in Warren County, it's outside of city limits. So we would essentially be if the city was to participate, we'd be a
It
co-sponsor.
totally depends how you want to approach it.
Yeah,
So are TAP funds available simply for the fact that you're going to pull bicycles and pedestrians off Route 47?
exactly. That's,
Potentially.
I mean, you just had a 15-minute conversation on how 47 is an important freightway, and now you're going to have,
Bikes.
you want bikes and pedestrians to get out of the way, obviously, so.
Good point.
Not so much that you're building a trail, but we're going to remove this impediment or this safety concern from Route 47, so.
and that might be a reason why the committee, a formal committee that meets is another good idea, because there's some environmental concerns, you're in a floodplain, there's a lot of engineering that would go into this as well. And with Warren County actually owning Warco Road or a connection to the city property, you'd want them involved as well. So,
No problem.
Right.
I'll talk to you.
I want to point out something that I just learned, make sure I heard it right, and it makes sense after you said it, but that the trail completion across the bridge won't be completed until mid-2019, because you have to demo the old bridge in order to get the area to where you build the crossing under the bridge and so forth. So it made sense when you said it. I just never thought of the fact that the
You know
entire
what?
thing wouldn't be
Thank you for
open.
explaining that. I was beginning to think, when I wrote that down, I thought, man, what's that all
Yep.
about?
Well,
How come
again,
I don't know?
we've talked about it a long time ago, but the trail under on the Washington Riverfront Trail too will not be open until 2019.
fact.
Because we still have the old bridge over the top that will have
Okay.
to come down.
I
12 months at least.
I thought, boy, I missed
Yeah,
that one.
it's July of next year.
Thank you.
Yes.
Very good.
Ray,
I know when we talked about it a couple years ago, it's,
It's on my-
I was scheduling a trail party. Go ahead.
yes, I'm sorry.
what's the status of a new hangar at the airport?
Yes. For the rest of the new hangar, you mean the tarmac that we're doing? We have had discussions also about the possibility of needing to think about scheduling a new hangar. That was kind of brought up for the first time at the last meeting. I don't have a lot of notes on it, but we do have a waiting list, and we discussed that waiting list of 18 people in detail as to what they are. Some of those people are people in our own hangars that want to move to the new ones, because that's more preferable. We're also looking into a study of all the hangar rates to see if we should raise the new hangar more than the other, more than it is. But for right now, I would have to tell you, Bill, that is just starting to be discussed. Is there enough demand that we need to start thinking about constructing a new hangar similar to the last new one? So it's on the agenda at this point in time, and that's it.
Even though you got 18 people on the waiting list, 18 people who have planes have got their planes in a hangar somewhere.
Correct.
It's not like they're waiting to put their plane in a hangar. I just want to move to a different spot.
That was a great way to put it. So the people who are not currently at our airport that are on that list, we think we have 18 outside of the airport, but they're all in hangars now. And they probably got a lease that commits them for a year or so. So once we notify them and say, can you move tomorrow? All of them are going to say, well, I've got to pay my lease out. So if we notify them and say, we'll have a new hangar built in 2 years, we feel as your operators that we could probably fill that up here in Washington. But that's a discussion we've just.
You wouldn't buy a plane if you didn't have a place to put it.
Campers, campers.
Yeah.
Okay, to finish out, moving on from that, the airport paving, and I'm going to ask John for an update on that one.
Yes, paving operations occurred last Thursday. They're about 40% done with Phase 1. Phase 1 is 75% of the apron paving that is to be done. It is staged in Phase 1 and Phase 2. The reason for that was to be able to get planes into the hangars off the actual runway itself. They're about 40% with that. We're going to be doing 7-day breaks on that concrete. If they break within specification, they'll move forward and finishing up paving, hopefully, I would say no later than next week. They are 57 days over schedule right now. So that's a pretty substantial amount. They are being, they're I mean, $750 a day in liquidated damages. They're 57 days over, so you can do the math on that. Fuel sales have gone to basically nothing at this time. There was an issue with base rock. They could not, the FAA required, it's called a P209, nobody cares, but it's just a special gradation of base rock that is not readily available in any quarry local. We could not change that specification. That is an FAA specification. So they were having issues trucking it in. I believe they were bringing it from St. Joe. So it was a long trucking haul. The entire airport that was constructed, I don't know when the date was, when we did the expansion, that was done, was called a P209 or P208 base rock, which is just a different gradation. So working with our consultant, and that rock is more readily available. Working with our consultant, going through that, they ran the pavement calculations on it to make sure it could hold up. Knowing that the entire airport was built to 208, we did entertain and approve a cost deduct for the 208. FAA did allow that because the 209 is not readily available local to us. So it is a little bit of a lesser, I don't know what the fines might be lesser, I don't know what the details are. But the entire airport was built to the 208. I do not anticipate any issues with quality of what was done, but we did receive a cost deduct, and we are still going to pursue the liquidated damages. So I know we're over on time. We're working as close as we can with the contractor. But I would just once again ask everyone to be patient. There is movement, and there is at least a light at the end of the runway, maybe. So,
Light at the end of the runway.
Literally.
Good. I like that.
literally.
Okay, and then the final thing on my report is that we're still pursuing the airport layout plan. It's now being held up at MoDOT for no particular reason other than they haven't gotten to it. So I'm going to start pushing that harder.
I'm pushing it twice a month, making phone calls. It's just
The CMT is contacting them and saying, hey,
correct.
what's going on? Ultimately, we don't lose anything. The date of our plan is newer, which is the same logic we had before, but we realize everybody wants to get this finished out, and we are pushing it. Any questions?
I would just ask one more thing. I know the striping project that was an alternative to this paving project, and it was actually, we didn't accept the alternate. I did begin conversations with CMT last week as far as when we can get that up and going. The plans are basically done. It just needs to be pulled out of the original bid docs with this paving project because it was just an alternative bid. And then I need to work out a contract with CMT to do that work. So that could go pretty quickly, and we just started those conversations late last week. So I would anticipate once the paving's done, then hopefully we would roll into a striping project maybe late summer, early fall to get that taken care of as well. So I know, Ray, you didn't.
All of the new paving will be restriped. Whatever striping we lost on there will be put back in. So it's not like we have to have it immediately. Yeah.
Any other comments about airport? Hearing none. Team Track?
No news.
East-West Parkway?
No news.
Public transportation? Anybody? Hearing none. Other business? Any other business?
Just want to let everybody know Bluff Road project is probably one of the biggest projects we have going on this summer and probably in quite some time. It is at MoDOT right now getting bid concurrence. We're waiting on getting clearance on our DBE, disadvantaged business entities. I think it's 11% target. We're pushing hard to get that project under construction in mid-July, mid to late July. There's a lot of things that got to move at MoDOT and at the federal level. So we're working pretty hard. Talking with the contractor, we have not done a pre-construction meeting yet, but talking with the contractor, it appears that they're going to do the pavement reconstruction between M.E. Frike Drive and Lang Drive first. There's a full depth, full removal of the asphalt and reconstruction. It's rutting pretty bad at that location. That will occur first. So they'll reconstruct the entire area. It will affect like SOM welding. Melton will have access. Frikes will have access, and they'll have to work with the Missouri on getting access as well. But that will probably be the first phase of that. Bluff Road will remain open during that time, and then there'll be a transition over where Bluff Road will close. So just keep in mind that that's probably how the schedule is going to work out, but I'll brief council for sure on when that happens. There will be a lot of coordination between City Hall and the businesses, and I would just ask that any business that's in the industrial park, make sure you get that information to your employees as best as you can. Considering that a lot of the employees do not live in Washington, it's gonna be a headache through summer, fall. So
How long is that?
it's 90 days, so it's quick.
It's quick.
Those are the best months to do that fill, though.
Yes, exactly. There's some positives with this project going out. For example, one was we wanted to do it earlier in the spring. We did have a couple wet periods here that would have been terrible. You know, we could hopefully get the fill in before the school buses, because there's a bus barn that serves Washington School District and Union School District. So that's going to be a headache. So I feel like there's the positives are outweighing the negatives. But we're going to work through it. So if anybody gets any calls or concerns, my plan is I freed up my entire summer to take phone calls.
Well, it'll be nice when it's done.
It will be, and it's going to be an improvement with that westbound turn lane onto 100. I think you get a lot of traffic coming west to work in the industrial park, and with the tractor trailers, that tabletop, getting trucks up the hill. I don't think it will solve all the problems getting out of the industrial park. I don't want anyone to think that you're never going to wait through two cycles of traffic again, but it will alleviate the problem and position us well for the future. So.
And it eliminates the potential problem with that culvert and that creek crossing. That was going to happen sometime in the future. We're getting that done now.
That culvert, I mean, it wasn't identified in the initial grant, but if you had an opportunity to see the condition of that CMP culvert, you would know why we're replacing the culvert. So.
Anything else?
Would a roundabout help that intersection out?
No.
A free one.
The answer is no. At least from my perspective.
I'll second that one.
Woohoo!
I have no comment.
Anything else? Anything else? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, thank you.
Hey, John, what's your record?
Did we get Chad Egan
What did John do?
Yeah.
I've done nothing. 10:15. Yeah, but to be honest, call 1010. That's the office number.
The
Because
bypass
I get,
Warren County update, or
it's an unbelievable amount of calls a day, and I don't go through my missed